From vampires living among us to an entire nation actually being fake. This is 3 strange conspiracy theories that you've probably never heard of. Hello everyone, my name is Joseph. I'm the guy who wears a beanie and talks about conspiracy theories, if you couldn't tell from my hat. And what we do here is, you guessed it, discuss conspiracies. When I say that, you probably have a specific idea in mind of what that might be, but we actually cover a bit more than that. We'll look into disappearances and the conspiracies behind them, strange events as well, and dig into a lot of different things we see every day and see if there's any hidden truth behind it. And if you like the type of content you see here, I've got a little secret for you. If you click that red button down below, it's actually going to change color. Same goes for that thumbs up you'll see under this video. You should give it a try. In all seriousness though, if you do subscribe, it'll make sure that you see each of my videos when they come up and don't get caught out of the loop on recent conspiracy theories and strange events happening across the world. Without further ado, we'll get right into the video. Now, when I first saw this theory, I thought it was quite strange. First, the idea that vampires actually exist and are roaming around the world's leadership was a bit strange to me. However, when you consider the original source for vampire legends today, it actually makes a bit of sense. The original inspiration for modern-day vampires is always thought to be Vlad the Impaler, a ruler of Wallachia whom had multiple reigns in the 1400s. He passed the time by placing people on wooden stakes, large wooden pikes that he would place anybody he didn't like onto. They would slowly die, of course, as they fell down the pike, and he was specialized at making sure they lived as long as possible, which is, of course, a gruesome death. Now, the amount of people that he killed is not certain, but people in that era described it as a forest of dead bodies that he just kept on these pikes. Now, because of this, he is described during that time as a bloodthirsty emperor, a ruler with a thirst for death. Modern-day vampires, of course, are described as sucking blood, which is thought to be inspired by the description of Vlad the Impaler as being bloodthirsty. During that time, it was common to stab a perceived evil entity through the heart with a wooden stake. Whether that be a witch, a sorcerer, they feared that they would come back to life and walk the earth. And the reason behind this were graves that would be dug up, and they would find that the coffin had scratches inside it. They would usually dig up these graves when there was a strange death nearby, out of fear that the dead had risen and were actually killing. Sadly, however, it is commonly believed that during that time, these were people who were buried when they weren't actually dead. Whether they were in some deep sleep or diseased, they were buried and they were alive and tried to scratch through the coffin. Sad as that might be, it did spawn the legend, however, that many supernatural entities have to have a wooden stake driven through their heart to be killed, including vampires. This is because the people during that time feared that Vlad, the notorious bloodthirsty monster, would rise from his grave and haunt the living. And so, a bloodthirsty maniac like Vlad birthed the legend of vampires. And what does any of this have to do with the royal family? Well, it came as a surprise to me to find out that Prince Charles is actually a descendant, or supposed descendant, of Vlad III. Now, of course, being a descendant of someone so evil does not mean that you are anything like them. Bloodlines do not carry with them those kind of traits. You can always change. So Prince Charles being a descendant of this awful person does not mean he himself practices anything that he does. Again, these videos are theories and are not meant to specifically attack anyone or really anything. However, him being a descendant of Vlad III does spawn theories especially when you consider that some among the royal family have porphyria. That is, a iron deficiency that actually causes an allergy to sunlight. We all know the legends that vampires find the sun toxic. I think an allergy is a small relation. There are actually quite a few people, some among my family included, that have an allergy to the sun. So that isn't as rare as people actually think it is. But those are two facts that kind of tie to this. I can understand why people kind of make that relation. But the biggest piece of evidence, and again, this is supposed, is that there was a man who claimed to be completing service at the Windsor Castle. He claimed to have found, during that service, human remains in Queen Elizabeth II's own freezer. Now, there are theories, a bit far-fetched, that claim that Queen Elizabeth is a cannibal, and that's why she's lived so long. Interestingly enough, it's theorized that cannibalism actually can improve longevity, health, and protection against viruses. Not to condone cannibalism at all, of course, but she has lived a very long time, and people kind of make this comparison, especially with the evidence claimed by this serviceman, which, if it's real, is pretty damning. Now, this could all be rumor, of course, that's why it's a conspiracy theory. But what do you think? Could Vlad's lineage actually still be in their veins? Could they be acting on it? Are there actually vampires among the royal family? Or are these just strange events kind of tied together that are all just coincidences? And do you have further evidence that I've missed that can add to these theories and make them a bit more interesting? Let me know in the comment section below. This interesting theory actually has nothing to do with anyone conspiring today. There is very little chance that we'll actually know whether it's true or not, but that doesn't make it any less interesting. In 1991, Herbert Illig proposed that the years between 1640 and 1911 AD don't exist. He theorizes that the Emperor Odo III fabricated this historical period in order to place themselves in the year 1000 AD. This would have been done to legitimize Odo's claim to the throne, so that he could rule without some sort of uprising. This was said to have included multiple world leaders at the time to change the calendar in order to put Odo on the throne quickly. Illig points to the lack of archaeological evidence from that period. We know what we do from the years between 614 and 911 because we rely on medieval texts and written historical documents rather than actual physical evidence. He proposes as well that the switching of calendars in 1582 could have resulted in the inclusion of nearly 300 extra years that never happened. This is due to lack of knowledge when the Julian calendar was created. Supposedly, when they made the calendar, they miscalculated how long a year actually is, and because of that, did not include certain days that should be included in the year. Now, Pope Gregory XIII in 1582 proposed that they fix this issue by putting in place a new calendar. This would fix the missing days. This would put them on a more accurate calendar, a yearly calendar. Illig theorizes, however, that the length of time they included in this calendar, the amount of days they put in to counteract the damage done by the Julian calendar, was too many. And in doing this, backtracking and placing these days through each year that were missed includes almost 300 years that shouldn't be there. There are multiple claims, however, saying that this isn't the case, that when they did this calendar swap, they had thought about that. But what do you think? Could there actually be 300 years of history that never happened? And if there is, Is it possible that this could have happened before as well? To think that entire sections of history could be fabricated isn't that far-fetched, considering that the winner of each war and each period of history gets to tell the story. Now, originally I was reading this theory as more entertainment because it was a little strange, but as I dug into it, I found that there's potential for it to be true. It is a bit far-fetched, granted, but when we're already considering the possibility that world agencies could have lied about different portions of history and changed history and are hiding things, it certainly is possible. This theory suggests that the entire nation of Finland doesn't exist and is instead an extension of the Baltic Sea, meaning that the landmass itself isn't there and is just more water. Now you might say, why? Why would that be done? Who would have done that? And how could it have been done? And those are the exact same questions I had asked. Fortunately, like any good theory, there are answers. First, the writer of this theory suggests that this was completed by both Japan and Russia. Now, why would two nations like that get together and create a fake country? Well, the reason is actually believable. Whether they could have done it or not, I couldn't say. However, why they would have done it is pretty compelling. First, they suggest that Japan and Russia created this fake country so that they could freely fish in this ocean that's hidden from everyone else's eyes. That is, of course, to hide it from activists and not have to follow certain pollution laws and regulations. If no one knows it exists, no one's going to cause a fuss. And the first thing I would have suggested or counter-argued is that if there is an entire fake nation out there surrounded by other nations and other people, someone would have said something. This theory tries to cover for that and suggests that the surrounding nations and their leaders allow this fake Finland to exist so they can dream of a better, perfect country. That this fake country, this fake nation, can represent what they hope to build, this perfect paradise, the nation that gets things right, in which the processes that they're trying to put forward that their citizens disagree with, in that nation that actually works. And I could kind of support this, assuming it's true, because if you have a fake nation, you can do anything you want with that nation. You can write any narrative you wish. Say a government of a specific country wanted to ban a specific product, and their citizens are completely against it. How'd they go about doing that? Well, if they have this imaginary country where everything goes right, and in that fake country where they write the narrative, they can say, oh, Finland did this, and it worked, and in fact it worked so well that its citizens are now even more happy than they were before. Suddenly everyone is going to want to support this because everyone wants to live in Finland. And this idea, this conjunction of different theories on why Finland couldn't exist, come together to actually form a slightly compelling argument. Now, I'll say, I do believe Finland does exist, but they do put forth some compelling ideas that, if it came out and truth came and said Finland doesn't exist, I wouldn't be all that surprised. Alright everyone, that's all I got for you today. But if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and test that trick I mentioned at the beginning. Press that red button and see what happens. And also here, you can turn the thumbs up blue. It makes the whole thing look kind of pretty. But in all seriousness, If you do have something to add to these theories, if you have another fact, or if you think they're completely crazy, make sure to include your opinion in the comments below. I do read them, and I enjoy to see what you guys think about these 3 theories that I've included here. Otherwise, that's the end of this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Good night.